Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to Form Check Friday. We got a busy one today, so let's roll the intro. Okay, welcome back. It's Form Check Friday. Can't believe it's Friday again. We got a jam-packed episode this week. I think we've got 8 submissions, which is the most we've ever had. Awesome, super excited. I'm gonna try and get through all of them today. It's great that you're submitting this stuff and I want to take care of everybody. So let's get into it. See if we can get this thing done in an hour. All right. We also opened this to some programming questions. I think only one guy submitted one. That's okay. But as we go through these each week now, if you guys want to add a question about programming, even if you don't submit a video, you can throw up a programming question and we'll see if I can take like the last 5 to 10 minutes of the episode and just do like a rapid fire programming Q&A. So just like I said in the post, try and keep them short so I don't have to read like all of your programming for the last like 6 months. And it'll be fun. All right, so let's get into it. Here we go. Here's a follow-up to after your correction from 2 weeks ago. Any feedback is appreciated. Just a reminder to all you guys, I haven't seen any of these. So if you're new, this is all happening in real time. All right, let's check out what we got here. Let me move me out of the way. All right. Okay. See if I can, was there volume here? Yeah, let me kill the volume. All right, let me go back. I missed that. I was looking for the volume button. All right. So this is a follow-up to some corrections that we made. Hips are higher. Oh, much better pull. So I believe last time the issue was not following the 5-step deadlift procedure, dropping the butt too low, pushing the bar forward with the shins. So we reviewed what the correct 5-step setup procedure for the deadlift is. It usually places the hips a lot higher than people are used to if they're not familiar with that technique. And it looks like you nailed it. So let me go back and just start from the beginning and make sure we got everything. Shins 1 inch from the bar, grabbing with relatively straight legs. He drops his shins to the point that they touch. That's where his hips go. And we'll notice it looks like from that rep, the bar is not, we had a problem last time of the bar swinging away. So now the bar's right on the shins. It's dragging up the legs mostly. It looks like it's coming off the thighs right after the knee. Yeah, just a little bit. So this is a very simple correction, but you want to make sure that that bar is dragging up your legs the entire time. And a lot of times guys will pull it up, before the knee, it's right on the shins. And then once it crosses the knee, it's kind of floating off the thigh for a little bit. So you want to make sure that as soon as that bar crosses the knee, you pull it back onto the thighs. So it's just grazing the thighs the whole way up. Otherwise, you run the risk of the bar swinging out at the top of the rep instead of the previous problem was swinging out right off the floor. So it's a minor thing, but I want to nip it in the bud before it becomes a bigger problem. So good, rolling the bar back to the shins, keeping the hips high, setting the back. Yeah, so as you're getting tired, we're seeing a little bit more drift with the bar, and I'll tell you how to fix that in a second. Let's watch the last rep here. Good. All right, so this is like a massive improvement over last time. You took all the notes. I know we had the bar rolling forward, you were dropping your butt too low, it was swinging back in, and the bar kept progressively, you were setting it forward to the middle of the foot and then continuing to squat down to it. So over the course of the set, it was just drifting further and further forward, and your back angle was looking more like a squat. So now you've got the hips high, you're rolling the bar back to the shins. You probably took some weight off to fix this. I forget what the weight was, but that's good. And ultimately, once you get more comfortable with the form, it should start to feel like a shorter pull. In other words, It's hard to explain, but when you do it right, the deadlift will feel, when you do the deadlift correctly, it feels shorter than when you do it incorrectly. And okay, so the one thing to address here is that over the course of the set, it looks like we're getting a little bit of drift. I mentioned that with the thighs. And as you get more tired, that error becomes more noticeable. And the solution is all you need to do is get a little bit more weight back on your heels. So with the hips higher, there's a tendency to sort of rock forward and have more weight on the toes, especially if you have weightlifting shoes on because they have a little bit of a heel. All you have to do is overcompensate by rocking back. So normally in most of the lifts, we want the weight across the surface of the foot to be even so that the balance is right over the middle of the foot. In the deadlift, I like to tell guys that we want their weight to be about 60-40. So I want you to have a 60% of your weight back on your heels and 40% on your toes. And that slight rock back will keep the bar pressed against the legs and prevent it from drifting out. Now, here's when you do that. So if we look at your setup, and I'll just go to a rep where you're kind of restarting. Okay, so we'll watch this one and then I'll tell you how to fix the next one. So we even got a little, you got a little bit of weight on your toes. Okay, so right here, you set the bar down, okay? And you push your hips back up first. So that's the first step, is get your hips back up. That pulls the shins back. And then you roll the bar back to your shins, okay? So that's the first part, and I think you're doing that correctly. The next part is before you take your breath and before you set your back, you're gonna rock back on your heels. Now, when you rock back, you're just shifting the weight on your foot back, okay? Back to the heels. You're not dropping your butt. So a lot of times if I cue someone live in the gym to rock back on their heels, they drop their ass. Don't do that. Keep your hips high. And it's a very subtle change in pressure. It's just a little bit of a rock back. You'll feel that. Once you feel that, then you're gonna take your breath, squeeze your chest up and pull. Okay, so we're just adding a little step here to overcorrect. So set the bar down, get your hips up, roll it back to your shins, and then rock back on your heels a little bit, take your breath, squeeze your chest up, and pull the bar up. And it'll fix this problem immediately. That bar will stay on your legs and you won't have any problems drifting with the bar drifting away from you. Okay, excellent work. I'm glad you posted another video. Keep with it, and I promise you with this form, you will eventually blow past wherever you were grinding it out with the incorrect form. So great job. We're gonna move on. Thank you for submitting. Let's see who we got next. I have trouble with the hip drive cue and keeping my eyes focused on one spot. This is me after not squatting consistently for a month, hence the low weight. Okay, watch, there's like 405 on the bar. All right, let's see here. So before we play, see if I can pull the volume down. Okay, that's a high bar squat. So the bar already is too high up on your back. See if I can get my drawing tool. So we want the bar to be down here, okay? You've got it up here. So this is probably gonna be incorrect just because you have the bar in the wrong place. So you need to, there's another shelf. If you've got it on the first shelf, there's another shelf lower, and a lot of people don't know where that is. So you have to wedge yourself or wedge the bar a little bit lower on your back. If you look up, you can look on my website under the resources. There's a video of the squatting and the bar position. There's a starting strength video on learn how to squat, and it has some good close-ups of where the bar goes. So just a little bit lower on the back. We'll just watch and see what happens, but that's probably going to be the number one error here, is just bar placement. Because if the bar placement's wrong, so you've got good depth. I think your stance, I mean, you're actually going a little too deep, but let me see if I can pause it here. So as you are getting, so I think your stance is too wide. So what you want is about heel shoulder width with the toes pointed out 30 to 40 degrees, okay? So your toe angle looks okay, but I suspect that your stance is a little wide. And the reason that I suspect that is because it looks like your thigh is caving in. In other words, your toe is pointed out this way, and your knee, which I'm trying to do this in the little bubble. Your knee, which I want perfectly in line with your toe, is actually here. So your toe looks like it might be outside of your knee. And if you narrow your stance a little bit, it'll give you a little bit more leeway to shove your knees out even harder. If your feet are out too wide, then your knees are just gonna naturally, the limit of how far you can push them out is gonna be inhibited by the wide stance. And so they will only go, you can push them out as hard as you want, but if your stance is too wide, you're not gonna get it in line with your toe. So we want your knee and your toe in a perfectly straight line because that's the way it's meant to move, right? So if your toe is pointed out and your knee is inside, now we've got twisting on your knee. And same thing if it's outside the foot. You've got, not tension, what's the word? Torque. That's like a Kelly Starrett term. But there's twisting on your knee, and over time that's gonna piss your knees off a lot. So you're also going too deep, and I suspect that's mainly because you're not shoving your knees out wide enough. So I would narrow your stance about, it's hard to tell with the camera angles because I need an angle behind you to make sure, but I would maybe narrow your stance about 1 inch, and then I would focus on shoving your knees out as hard as you can. In other words, this bad boy right here, right? That needs to come this way, just out, and the other one needs to go that way, out, as wide as you can. So if I could walk over to you in this position and put my hands inside your knees and pull them out farther, you didn't shove them out as hard as you could, and that's gonna eliminate or reduce the amount of bounce you're gonna get because you're not fully stretching out your groin muscles. Okay, so let's keep going here and we'll see if so we got the bar. This is another good example of the bar position, right? You've got the high bar thing. God, I suck at drawing with this thing. You got the high bar thing right here, right? And I want the bar right across the posterior deltoids down here, okay? And that will change the entire movement because when you lower the bar on your back, it makes you lean over. You have to shove your hips back more to keep it balanced over the middle of your foot. That stretches out more of the posterior chain. You're gonna shove your knees out harder. And the goal here is you're gonna incorporate a lot more muscle mass into the lift and you'll be able to lift a lot more weight. Despite all of those things, this isn't really bad. Like you're squatting well. You've got good hip drive. Yeah, I mean, okay, now you want to make sure, especially on that last rep, that you're staying leaned over as long as you can. So I know it's lightweight for you, but if you watch your good hip drive there, but you'll see, I think on the last rep, yeah, right on that one, you start to lift your chest a little too early. So remember, lean over and then right away, and then stay leaned over as long as you can. Okay, so on the way up, resist the urge to stand up too soon. Stay leaned over, stay in your hips, keep driving it as high as you can, and then once you get up to the top, then you're gonna stand up. And that'll keep more power in the movement. Overall, very good. Is that an SBD belt down there? It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of leather. Very good movement. Bring the bar down a little bit lower, shove your knees out a little bit harder, and you're gonna be money with this thing. So I mean, even with the incorrect bar placement, you're still doing a damn good job. So it's gonna get a lot easier when you put the bar in the right place. So check out those videos that I mentioned and work on it. Put some more weight on the bar. Send me something that looks heavy, and we'll keep going. Great work. Thanks for submitting. Okay. Hi, Paul. I'd appreciate if you look into my deads. I'm struggling to fully set my back and the grip. Set the back and the grip. Okay, hook grip gave me, excuse me, God, these are sentence fragments, okay. Hook gave up after spending too much time down and had to switch to mixed. If it helps, I'm doing a 4-day Texas method with rack pull accessory on Tuesday, heavy squat volume dead. So I assume that means volume deads are rack pulls. And you know, we can talk about that, but let's take a look at your lift. So hook grip, look, hook grip sucks. I mean, there are people, sorry, I'm biased because I hate it. I've tried and I gave up on it too. There are some people who don't have a problem with it, and that's awesome. I know guys who pull 700 pounds with a hook grip, and it's just fine. Then there are other people like me where it just, I mean, maybe I'm a wuss, but I just gave up on it because it just hurt too much. It was distracting. I pull with straps now. I'm not competing anymore. The mixed grip is fine, and you probably won't have a problem with a mixed grip. Personally, at 42 and having seen mostly on the internet, but once in my gym with a client, a bicep tendon avulsion, it's just not worth it to me anymore. And so I just use straps, pull double overhand, and it eliminates that possibility of tearing my bicep tendon off. I just feel better about it. I know that, I just don't want to be out of the gym for 6 months or whatever it takes to heal that after the surgery. So you can pull mixed, you're going to be fine. And probably, and the main thing you want to make sure with a mixed grip is that you don't ever try and curl the bar, right? So a lot of times when things start to get heavy, you'll see guys start to like curl it. Arms just have to hang dead, right? They're just hang there, and then you remove that possibility of having it tear off. But okay, so let's see what we're doing here. Little psych up. I like it. Okay. Going for the hook, I think. Okay, this is going to be fun. We got some stuff to talk about. Good. Okay. So this is interesting. Nope, we got to decide. Okay. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Here we go. Come on. Come on. Nice. Nice grind. All right. I like it. There. Yeah. Okay. This is going to be tough because I think this video, you did your whole training video. Okay. So let's talk about a few things here. First of all, what am I looking at? Let's see if we, okay. Oh, I got your warm-ups and stuff. Maybe this is the set. Okay. So the first thing here in terms of overall efficiency in the lift, you are wasting a lot of energy setting your back. You actually don't seem to have a problem setting your back. It looks pretty good. A lot better than many of the round back deadlifts I've seen. So I don't think your problem is setting your back. The problem is that you're setting it like 3 times before you actually try and pick the weight up. So once you get down there and grab the bar, excuse me, you don't want to stay down there too long, right? Because it's an uncomfortable position. The blood's rushing to your head. Your thighs are pushing into your stomach. You can't breathe. And so you want to get down there and grab the bar and then take a breath, set your back, and pull the bar. And that's it. You want to take one breath and set your back one time. It's very hard to set your back, right? It takes a lot of effort to get that back, that low back flat and tight. And so you don't want to do all the work of arching it and setting it and then relax and fidget around with your hands and exhale and take another breath and then set it again and then relax and do it like 3 times before you actually pick the weight up, because you're just wasting energy. This needs to be a much more methodical and faster cadence between you putting your hands on the bar and picking it up off the ground. And what we're trying to do is make sure that you've got some juice for that last rep. Okay, so on a set of 5, I want you to get through 3 reps pretty quickly before you have to take more than 1 breath to get those last 2. And like for the last rep, fine. If you need to stay down there and take like 3 or 4 breaths and get psyched up, that's okay. But you want to, when you're not tired in the first couple reps, you just want to get set and go. So I have a video, I've mentioned this before if you've watched the other ones, called Fix Your Deadlift Cadence. It's on my YouTube channel. But the idea is you put your hands on the bar, and then from that point, once you drop your shins, you take your breath, set your back, pause, and pull. Breathe, squeeze, pause, pull. Breathe, squeeze, pause, pull. That's one breath, right? So take a breath, squeeze your chest up, pause to make sure that your weight is in the right place, you haven't nudged the bar, and you're as tight as you can possibly be. That's what that pause is for. And then pull. That's what we want. So if we watch from the time you grab the bar here and drop your shins, this is all good. So see how you set, and then now you're wiggling, and your grip is, if we watch you still haven't picked it up. So if you watch your hands, they're kind of doing this, right? That's your set. Then you relax, you set again, you're still wiggling around, and then you go. Okay, and then here, now this is way too much time in between reps here. One set, and you see you relaxed right there again. You just have to go for it, right? Like, you need to, and this takes practice, right? So I'm not like giving you shit here. You're moving a lot of weight, but that right there, that set is your cue. Like you have to think about the deadlift like this. It is an ever increasing amount of tension. Okay, so when you're standing up, there's no tension. You reach down and grab the bar. Now you got some tension on your hamstrings. You drop your shins, you squeeze your chest up. We're getting more and more tension, right? We're building tension until you're so tense that the bar rips off the ground. It's not get real tense, let it go, get real tense again, let it go, wiggle around, fidget with the grip, let it go, and then rip it off the ground. Because that's where you're going to lose your focus on your low back. So your problem isn't getting your back set. Your problem is that with all the wasted time messing around, you're focusing on setting your back, and then you shift your focus to your grip, or you shift your focus to your breath, and it takes the focus off your back and you let it go. So while you may have set it perfectly, by the time you go to pull it, you're not thinking about your low back anymore, and so it starts to round, okay? What I tell my guys is set your back and keep setting it the entire way up. Don't ever take your focus off your low back. And if you follow the advice that I'm giving you, which is this ever increasing amount of tension, where you're breathing, squeezing, right? Pausing and pulling, right? That squeeze is like the last thing you have to think about. That tension in your back is the last thing you have to think about before you try and pick the bar up off the ground. Okay? So rather than tension and then let me fix my grip and let me wiggle around and stuff like that, right? Then you're going to lose your focus and your back's naturally going to round. So let's watch this last rep. And there's one more thing I want to talk about with you. Yeah. And I think you mentioned your eyes, like you're kind of looking all over the place. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, if you can keep your eyes down on the ground, that's fine. Even when I'm deadlifting, sometimes I just like end up closing my eyes naturally. You don't have a big bar path problem, so it's not something I'm too worried about. It seems to be on your legs most of the rep. But there is one more thing. Usually if you pull mixed, you want to use your non-dominant hand. Okay. So if you're right-handed, you usually flip your left. You should make that decision before. So again, you're not wasting extra time in this uncomfortable position. Okay. We got another one. Another thing that you might want to consider is getting a 3-inch belt. I don't know how tall you are, but if you're under 6 feet, I usually for deadlifting recommend getting a 3-inch belt. Just makes it a little bit easier to set your back because you don't have such a the belt isn't digging into your hips and your ribs. So a lot of times just changing the belt out gives guys a better perception of setting their back. Might be worth investing in. You're doing an okay job with the 4-inch belt, so I wouldn't worry about it. But if you've got the cash, a 3-inch belt is quite useful for the deadlift. If you're over 6 feet, then, you can probably get away with a 4-inch belt. I'm 6'1". I still use the 3-inch belt. I just like it more. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that you might have a problem of, and I have to check. So this is a subtle thing, so bear with me here. Most people, the issue with the deadlift, the error that you're going to see is they're going to drop their hips too low, right? So when they they want to squat it because they're used to squatting, so they want to drop their butt. When they set their back, they're going to drop their hips too low. In your case, it looks to me like your hips might actually be a little bit too high, and that means the bar is actually behind the middle of the foot a little bit, okay? So it's a less common problem for people to do that because most guys aren't that flexible. But if you shove your ass up too high and you pull the bar back to your shins, it can actually go behind the middle of your foot. And I'll see if I can pause it in time here. That looks okay. But what's happening if you do that, let me see here. How am I going to articulate this? I mean, the hip position looks good, but it looks to me like you're pushing and the bar is actually swinging back as you extend off the ground, right? So it's almost turning into here what looks like a stiff leg deadlift where your chest is out over the bar, but you can see kind of the angle of your legs here is like that. Right? And so the bar path is actually going at a bit of an angle like that. And so what I want you to do is think about this more like a leg press. Okay. So, when you're when you're sitting down a leg press, the cue that we give people in the deadlift is to push the floor away from you with your leg. So we call it a pull, but in reality, it's a push. And it looks to me like you're kind of extending your knees too quickly without opening up the hips, right? So you're ending up looking like you're doing a Romanian deadlift or a stiff leg deadlift. And to me, that means you're probably not getting the push off the floor that I want, because I want that bar to go straight up and down, not back over the middle of your foot. So one of the things that might help with this is wearing weightlifting shoes, because that will naturally kick you a little bit forward, right? Because of the heel, it'll push you a little bit more onto your toes naturally. And then that's going to give you a little bit more push with the quads. Okay. So that just doing that instead of pulling in these soft Converse might help a great deal. I recommend that anyway, because just the construction of a weightlifting shoe with the heel cup and the strap across the top, and the very flat, non-squishy surface, it makes the whole it makes every lift just feel a lot more stable. And then in your case you might be back on your heels a little too much. That's probably the deal. This is a better way of me articulating this. You probably have too much weight. Your weight is shifting back onto your heels too much off the floor, and that's causing the bar, most guys, the problem is coming forward of the midfoot. Your bar path is actually coming back behind the midfoot right away. So in your case, I want you to think about the deadlift more like a squat. I don't think it's a problem with hip position, because I think you're getting the starting position correct. That would be the hips here would be too high, but you are lowering them into. So yeah, that to me looks like a good hip position. This is it. Okay. Sorry, this took me a little bit to figure out what's going on here, but you've got too much weight on your heels. Okay. And that's why the bar is going back like that as soon as you push. Yeah, you see it. It's subtle right there, but you see it kind of swing back as you're going. So more weight on the toes. If you have lifting shoes, try putting those on and record a set and see what it looks like. In the absence of lifting shoes, you just have to be a little bit more conscious of getting a little bit of your weight forward or getting more weight onto the toes. So without lifting shoes, in the last video, I told the guy I want 60% of the weight on the heels and 40% on the toes. That's with lifting shoes. If you don't have the heel, then you're probably going to want to go for balance And in your case, since we're trying to overcorrect, you might want to think about being on your toes a little bit more. So get your hips up and then make sure you're rocking forward a little bit so you feel some pressure on your toes, and stay there. And then you want to just think about pushing straight down. Okay, you're going to push straight down with the legs, and that bar should come straight up. So that's the deal here with these. We'll watch one more. Yeah, that one wasn't so bad. But, okay, so overall, just to recap, get your cadence down. So you take a breath, set your back, pause, and go. Okay, that should be the rhythm. And then keep your weight a little bit more forward. Keep your chest over the bar a little bit. Stay off your heels more than you are right now. And, oh, you've got lifting shoes right here. Okay, I think there's a bar in the way. And try pulling in your lifting shoes and see how it feels. It might be a little awkward, but think more quad here off the floor, keeping your weight a little bit forward, and see if we can get rid of that drift back. And I think you're going to be fine, especially just with getting the cadence and saving all that energy that you're wasting screwing around before you pull it. Okay, so try and get through, once you grab the bar, breathe, squeeze, pause, pull, go. Set it down, take a breath, go through the breathe, squeeze, pause, pull, go. Try and get through 3 reps pretty quickly. And then for rep 4 and 5, you can take more of a break and sort of psych yourself up to finish it. But all right, hope that helps. We spent a long time on that one, but I struggled to figure out exactly what's going on. This was good. Thank you very much for submitting. Post another video and we'll see if you cleaned it up. All right, we got to keep going here. Hello, I would love feedback on my first time low bar squat with an empty barbell. All right, this will be fun. I read the Starting Strength book and followed Rip's advice. The form is far from perfect, but I would appreciate any feedback or your feedback on anything I can immediately fix. All right, well, very brave of you to submit a empty bar. Oh, what a bummer. This video might be inappropriate for some users. Well, how do I play it? Then we got that guy. How do I play this? Yeah. Do I have to oh, here we go. No, it's not going to let me play it. This is a bummer. Yeah. Try again. Oh, okay. Wait, did we get it? Or is this someone else? No, I think there's someone else. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the video, but it got flagged, so we can't look at it. Try and post it again next time, or use a Dropbox or something. All right, bummer. I wanted to see that. All right, moving on. Hey, Paul, thanks for reviewing. This is a follow-up to 2 weeks ago, my attempt at incorporating more hip drive. Also, the back pain improved, but for some reps, I still feel a sharp pain in my low back. It occurs right as I start the ascent or immediately after the ascent. I feel like the bar might be shooting forward of the midfoot on the reps where I can feel the pain. It's possible. Could this be the cause of the back pain? We'll talk about that. My lumbar position looks okay. Your thoughts. All right, here we go. Okay, come on. Let's get it going. Here we go. We're still psyching up. Okay. Stance looks good. Bar looks good. Okay. All right, your knees are caving in a little bit. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, okay, so much better with the hip drive all around. You're doing, well, we got 30 seconds of, if you guys can trim these so that it starts with the action, that would be helpful. Okay, so let's first address the hip drive issue and see how we do. Yeah, good. Now, if you watch your hips, you'll see that they go back and up, right? So there's this, we've talked about this in the last video. We've got this scoop, right? So you're doing a good job of driving your hips up, but we want the hips to come straight up, not back and up. All right. And I'll tell you why that's happening. Okay. So you've got the idea with the hip drive. Very good. Depth is, I mean, it looks like it's on point. Let me make sure. Yeah, you're hitting depth. Okay, so that we got to address that scoop and the knees because they're tied together. So you lean over and you shove your knees out as hard as you can, right? Now, the deeper you get in the squat, the more that those knees are going to want to pull in, right? Because your adductors are tightening up, right? There's more tension on those muscles. And so they naturally want to pull in. And so as you get deeper in the squat, it becomes harder to keep the knees out. You have to so what, right? You have to keep them out. That's the job here. Because if you let them cave in, you're slacking the tension and you're going to kill that bounce. Okay. You're going to kill the hip drive, or excuse me, you're going to kill the stretch reflex at the bottom of the rep that comes from that tension that you're fighting for. Okay. So if we watch your knee, if we watch your right knee here as you go down, you'll see it pull in, right? You'll see your kneecap go in like that. And that is also the cause of the scoop backwards, okay? Because as the knees pull in, right, and you try and push your hips up, everything starts to shoot backwards, right? So instead, the right move here is you have to keep the knees out as hard as possible at the bottom. So if you put them, let me see if I can mark it here. All right, so if we pause it here, right, and you put your knee like here, then it has to stay here at the bottom. So like if I'm looking at this hammer strength thing right here, you're pretty close to that H, right? And if we play it and we do it again, now we're kind of inside. So we were near the H here, this little mark, and now we're here, which means your knee shifted in, okay? And that, again, the knees cave in, and now the hips go in this like circular motion instead of just straight up and down. So it's an easy fix to explain, and it's a hard fix to actually do. And that is you have to keep your knees out real wide at the bottom. So what I would do in your case is practice pause squats, like I mentioned before. Go down to this position right here, right, with the empty bar, maybe a little bit of weight. Count to 3, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. Ask yourself, is my chest up, which it is, looks great. Am I balanced over the midfoot, which it looks like you are. And the third question is, are my knees out as wide as possible? And they are not. So, with the empty bar on your back, you can sit down there all day, push them out and feel that tighten up in your groin. And register that in your head. Oh, shoot, I pushed them out 3 inches. They must have not been out hard enough. And then once you have it out, come back up. And then on the next rep, try to go to that exact position without having to adjust anything. In other words, try to go back down. And during those 3 seconds, when you try to push your knees out, you can't because you already pushed them out as much as possible. Okay. And the shitty part about this is with any form error, on any lift, if you haven't been doing it correctly, there is a weak link in the chain, right? And in other words, the muscles that keep your external rotators that keep those knees jacked out real hard, because you haven't been insisting on that happening, you've continued to get stronger in other places, but they haven't, because you haven't been requiring them to do their share of the work. And so so that's going to be your limiting factor, right? So those muscles have to catch up before you can continue putting weight on the bar. I mean, you could continue putting weight on the bar like this, but it's going to bite you in the ass eventually, because eventually that scoop is going to become so pronounced that you're going to dump the bar over your head at some point. So you're probably going to have to back off a little bit and fix that movement pattern and let those muscles in the external rotators that are keeping the knees out, let those muscles catch up in terms of strength. And it doesn't take very long, but you might need to do a little reset and insist on that. Like, just all your focus is on keeping the knees out. And then over time, they will strengthen and they will catch up to everything else. And then you'll be able to blow past where you're getting stuck or where you're going to get stuck with incorrect technique, because now you'll have more muscle mass involved in the lift, which means you can lift more weight, and you're going to get more of a stretch reflex out of the bottom. You're probably not feeling much of a bounce because you're slacking those adductors, and instead you're feeling this circular motion, which you're mistaking for a bounce. Keep the knees out, bounce straight up and down, and you're going to get the real stretch reflex, which is going to help you. So overall, the corrections you've made are great. This is just one of these problems that we all have to deal with at some point. And this has to be your focus for the next couple months, is just programming the knees to stay out, and then you'll be golden. All right. So great job. Thank you for submitting the video. This always gives us some cool stuff to talk about. And go fix that and post again. We'll take a look. All right. Moving on. Here's a follow-up. After last week, brought the weight down this week and focused on speed, head position, and depth. Rep 3 didn't feel like I hit depth, so I went for 6. Oh, and just to go back to the previous guy real quick, because he asked about back pain. I just saw that in the comment. Yes, the scooping motion in your that you're doing can affect back pain, because your butt goes back and the bar, and you actually have to lean over more. It's going to put more stress on your low back than you need. So that can cause the back pain. If we keep you in the right position over the middle of the foot the whole time and don't, put more leverage on your low back than we need to, then we'll reduce the overall stress of your low back, and hopefully it'll feel better. Back pain's weird. You could also do a perfectly good squat and still have back pain. So, all right, moving on. Rep 3 didn't feel like I hit depth, so I went for 6. Okay, nice. I like it. An honest man or woman. I don't know what we're getting here. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. So, all right. Okay. I think these are much better than last time. I remember last time we had a whole bunch of things to fix. So you're way closer to the form here. Bar looks like it's in the right place. Yep. You're leaning over. See how the knees are. Yeah, knees look good. Okay, so that's real lightweight for you, obviously, which is okay. Let's talk about one of the main issues here to fix. But this is a huge improvement over the last time. So excellent work. I know I hammered you last time, but it looks like you watched some videos and took my advice. And good. Now watch how you kind of hesitate at the bottom. See, you're actually pausing down there. That one was a little faster. That one you're kind of fishing for the bottom. Okay. So again, overall, very good. Make sure, we'll take care of this easy thing in the beginning. Make sure when you stand up at the top, you're standing up fully. It looks like you're still like a little lean forward too much at the top. Just stand up, naturally. You don't want to when you lock out your knees and you lock out your hips, that's where you can kind of rest and recompose yourself. So if you're leaning over a little bit, then you're not actually fully standing up. So it's harder to rest and recover in between reps if you're leaning forward. Easy fix, just stand up. Excuse me. Okay, now let's talk about that pause. So The goal of now that you've got the movement correct, right? The goal of leaning over, shoving the knees out is to stretch out the adductors, right? Stretch out the muscles of the posterior chain, like we talked about in the last video. And then that creates a rebound. That creates a stretch reflex at the bottom. There are two ways to blow that, okay? One of the ways is to not go all the way down and not fully stretch out those muscles. And if you don't fully stretch them, there's no stretch reflex, right? So squatting high, even just to parallel, will kill that stretch reflex. You're not squatting high. You're doing a great job. The other way to negate that stretch reflex is to pause, right? So if you go all the way down to the bottom, and what we want is this bounce effect where the muscles tighten up and we get a nice rebound, and you just stop down there like a pause squat, there's no bounce, right? You can't bounce because you just killed it, right? So that's what you're doing. And it's very common with a new lifter to sort of fish around for where the bottom is. You don't really know. Is it here? Is it here? Do I need to go lower? Totally normal. As you get more comfortable with the movement, I want to see that turn into a dynamic motion. So it's slow and controlled on the way down. And then right before the bottom, right, the last like 2 inches, you're going to speed it up and you're going to let your butt drop down, catch that rebound and spring up. It's going to be dynamic. We want that. We want some pop in there, right? Because that is going to help you drive up, right? It's going to carry you a little bit higher up into the rep. So we'll watch this again. You're going a little too deep, I think. So I suspected that your stance was a little narrow. And after watching you easily go too deep, I know it's too narrow now. So widen your stance about 2 inches on both sides. Okay, so just move your feet out a couple inches, heels under the shoulders, right? You're kind of a broad guy, so heels under the shoulders, and that will tighten up, that will bring the bottom of the rep up higher, right? It'll change where those muscles tighten up just by moving your stance out. So that's an easy fix. So a little bit wider stance. And then we won't have to worry about you going too deep. You won't be able to if you jack your knees out. And then let's get rid of this pause, right? That's another reason that you're not going to feel much of a bounce, is because your stance is probably too narrow. So that was a good one right there. What was that, rep 3? You kind of had, that was probably the best, and that one you're fishing for it. And that one too. Oh yeah, you did 6, right? Yeah, okay, so there's just a hesitation down there. And I think the number one thing that's gonna fix that is widening your stance, because you're gonna feel that tightness a little higher up into the rep. It seems to me like you're kind of looking for it, like, hey, how come I haven't felt any stretch? I'll just keep going down. And that's, again, a byproduct of having the feet too narrow. You're just not gonna stretch out. So stance a little bit wider, and then think about a dynamic transition. Now, let me be clear. Do not drop from the top into the bottom of the rep. Don't just fall, because to drop that quickly, you have to loosen up. Instead, slow and controlled on the way down, and then about 2 inches above the bottom, you're gonna speed it up. So you get some speed going into the bounce, and you get some speed coming out of the bounce, and then up, you're gonna drive it, right? So control it, bounce, and then go. Okay, but you want to think about that being a more dynamic transition. Okay, as Rip used to say to people, think about, as you hit the bottom, just in your head, say the word boing. Just boing, boing, like a spring. And it sounds really stupid, but it just saying something like that in your head actually fixes it a lot of times. He's right about that. He's right about a lot of things. So, okay, great. Fix that. You're going to be golden. Get some more weight on the bar. This is way too light for you. All right, let's keep going. I think we're going to make this. Okay, I think we got 2 more. Cool. All right. Thanks for the main thing I'm concerned about is butt wink. Oh boy. All right, we're going to have to talk about that. In my attempt to hit depth, bracing and tempo, currently following MAPS performance of the guys at Mind Pump. But I started with the starting strength novice linear progression a few years ago. This phase focuses on low reps, compound lifts. My question is, what's a solid way to tell that you're ready for more weight next session. Would you suggest slowing the reps down before adding more? Okay, the way that you know that you need to go up in weight for the next session is that you got all your reps at the previous session. Okay? So if you were supposed to do 315 for a set of 5 and you got all 5, you put weight on the bar next time. Because we already know you can do 315, right? You got all the reps. So what's the point of doing that again, right? Go up, go to 320. That's how you know. You don't leave it to, you just look at your notebook, right? And you follow the program that you're supposed to do. If you get 5 reps, or whatever your rep range is, if you get 8 reps, if you're doing, sets of 8 and you get 8, put more weight on the bar. If you don't get 8, then you can repeat it and try again. But as long as you complete your set, you add more weight. It's very simple. Okay, so we handled that. Yeah, unless you're a very experienced lifter, then you haven't earned the right to have a subjective opinion on whether you should go up in weight or not, because you don't know, right? You don't know if you can do it. So you don't think like, oh, well, that felt okay, or I got all my reps, but maybe I should just try again, or maybe I should take some weight off because I'm not sure. No, this is not a subjective thing. You have a concrete outcome. You were supposed to do 5 reps. You got 5. Great. Program says go up 5 pounds. Go up 5 pounds. That's it. Simple. That's how you make progress. Okay. It's not a bad question, by the way. It's actually a very good question. So thank you for asking it. All right, let's see here. Bar looks good in the right place. Weightlifting shoes are on. No belt, I don't think. No, unless... Oh, this is very nice. Okay. Good hip drive, leading out of the bottom, staying leaned over. You'll notice that this gentleman does not have butt wink. Okay, so butt wink is not a thing. It's a thing. It's not a thing with weight on the bar. So one of the reasons I've said in other videos that I don't really coach empty bar sets, with a lifter, I don't even really bother. If someone's warming up, I'm not going to correct anything on their empty bar sets, assuming that they know the basic technique. If I see little errors with the empty bar, it's not even worth talking about because it's very easy to lift incorrectly with an empty bar. Once you put weight on the bar, all those problems that I would have wasted time talking about just magically go away. And one of those issues is butt wink. And what he's talking about with butt wink is your lumbar spine rounding at the bottom of the squat in an effort to get to the bottom. Okay, so and the reason that happens is essentially you're trying to go too deep, right? So if you get to the point where you're at the correct bottom position and everything is stretched out, your low back will be in this position. If you try and go lower than you need to, right, then the only way to do that is either let your knees cave in, which is an error, or let your low back go into flexion, which is an error. But butt wink goes away the minute you put weight on the bar. So we don't even talk about it. We're not even allowed to talk about it. If we do seminars or something like that, if we bring up butt wink, we just get yelled at. So because it doesn't exist with weight on the bar. So don't even worry about it. Now, if you were trying to go deeper than you needed to and it went into flexion, we could talk about that, but I don't see it. I can tell you what I do see, which is probably what you're perceiving as butt wink, but let me watch this set again and verify it. And just to say it before I forget, I would throw your belt on. Why not? You're at 225. I mean, this doesn't look too heavy for you, but it might help. So, yeah, I don't see any butt wink here. I mean, I can kind of see what you're thinking is butt wink, but your low back isn't going into flexion. So you don't really have a problem. These look great. They look real easy. Maybe that's the programming that they have you on. But let me just watch this one more time. This is going to be kind of a boring form check. Your depth is great. I mean, maybe you could keep your knees out a little harder. I mean, we all could, but depth is great. Hip drive's great. Yeah. I mean, this is a beautiful squat. It's just too light. I mean, even that one, that was, you know, you're getting tired, but you're not lifting your chest too soon. I mean, I got nothing for you, for you here, man. These look great. And I don't know what you're doing in this. I'm not really familiar with, what'd you say, MAPS Performance or Mind Pump. But I've repped 265 last year, but want to make sure there are no glaring issues before throwing weight on the bar. There are no glaring issues. You need to be squatting 405. Like, you need to be doing a set of 5 with 405. You're built for it. I mean, look at you. You're like a tank here. So I don't know what the program is that you're doing. I'm not that familiar with MAPS or whatever it's called. It could be very good, but if this is the weight that you're working with, you're wasting your time. Because with this form, and I mean, you should be squatting at least 365 for 5. I don't know how long you've been working at it, but your form is great. Did you say here? I started my weightlifting journey with the strength a few years ago. Okay, dude. Like, I don't mean to. I'm trying to be motivating here and not just like shit on you. But if you've been doing this for a few years with this technique and your build and you're doing 225, something's wrong. Because if you were in my gym, you'd probably be 365 or 405 for reps by now if it's been a couple years, because you just have the build for it. You understand the movement pattern. You've got great technique. You just need to pile weight on the bar. So I think that might be a bigger question here, which is, this might be a mental thing for you, which is very common and something we don't always talk about. So thank you for bringing this up. But if you're concerned about, if you're thinking about what's a solid way to know if you're ready to put more weight on the next session, that tells me that there's some psychological stuff going on in here, which is very common. Maybe you're nervous, maybe you're overly nervous about whether your form is correct, or a lot of guys are too cautious. They want to make sure that everything feels perfect in every lift before they add weight. And here's the little secret, right? Which I wrote about in my book, which is, at some point it all feels like shit. Okay. At some point, when the weights get heavy enough, everything just feels like shit. And you just barely feel like you're holding it together. You finish your set and you're like, God, that was awful. And then you look at your video and you go, who the hell was that? Because that rep, those reps look smooth and easy. And I'll tell you a very quick story. I had a guy come up to my gym years ago, and we sat down and we do a little consultation every time to find out why he's here. And this was a one-off kind of 2-hour, let's get my form and technique straightened out session. And I did these all the time. And he came up and he said, I've been to 5 different starting strength coaches. No one can fix me. And I knew who the coaches were. They're all good coaches. And I'm like, oh man, what's going on? He's like, my squat's a wreck. And I don't know what's wrong. So I'm trying you. And I'm like, okay, well, let's take a look. Got him under the bar. Perfect squat. Like, literally one of the best squats I've ever seen. Nothing was wrong with this thing at all. If I was nitpicking, I couldn't find something. And I was like, man, you drove up from, I think it was San Diego. You drove up like 2 hours to come see me, and you spent a bunch of money, and like, I don't feel like I'm solving your problems. Like, what's going on? Like, talk to me a little bit. Let's see if we can understand this. And what he said was, every time I watch guys on YouTube or Instagram lift weights, it just looks so smooth. Like, their weights look so smooth. But when I'm under the bar trying to lift, like, it just feels terrible. And I was like, yeah, that's the deal, man. Like, it doesn't feel how it looks, and it doesn't look how it feels. And that's why having a coach is useful. And if you don't have a coach, videoing it, because again, I don't care how it feels. I care about the bar speed from the first rep to the last rep. I care that your technique isn't breaking down, and I care about how fast the bar's moving. And if we watch your bar speed on this set, the last rep might feel like shit, but if it's just as fast as the first rep, it's not hard. You're not grinding. You don't have blood coming out of your nose. Like there's not even a deviation in your technique at all. So this is not heavy, right? And that we had to break the connection between how it looks and how it feels, and just be like, just accept that it's always going to feel shitty at some point, and you just do it anyway. And you don't let the feeling dictate whether or not you go up in weight. You go up in weight because you got it, right? You did it. Your form held mostly, it didn't break down, and the bar speed was decent, and you got all your reps. So go up in weight. And if you had been doing this from the day that you started a couple years ago, I mean, who knows what you'd be squatting? You'd be in the 400s easily. So, this is a great topic to talk about. Like I said, thank you for bringing this up. And I hope that mentally this can help you get over it. Just keep putting weight on the bar until you can't, right? And the only way that you know whether or not you can finish a set of 5 with the next weight is that you try it. And you're standing there with, 405 on your back, and you go, I've got 4 reps. I don't know if I have this last one. You don't rack it, you try it, right? Now, when you've been doing it I've been lifting for 20 years, so I don't miss reps anymore because I know when I have it and when I don't. I know when I'm not coming back up from a rep. But the only reason, or the only way that I know that, is because I've missed a hell of a lot of reps, because I spent years just trying it. And then you register, okay, when it feels like that, I don't come back up. But when it feels like a slightly less version of that, then I might have the next rep. So I'm going to try it. And so that's the deal, is you take all your feelings out of it, and you just put more weight on the bar, and you try every rep that you're supposed to try. And if you get it, you go up, and you will learn a tremendous amount about what you're capable of just by following that process and trying it over time. Okay. So let's go. Let's get more weight on that bar. I don't know what the program is, but you need to find one where you're putting more weight on the bar. With this, I would be running some kind of novice program until your squat's over 315. Okay. All right, man. Thank you for submitting, and keep going. Good job. And we'll post another video when you get into 315 or something, and we'll check it out. See if we can find some real errors. All right. I think we got Ryan. Squat and deadlift recheck if you have time. Okay. Let's see here. We're over an hour, but you know what? I like Ryan, so we'll keep going. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger and we can see we got 2. All right, Ryan. Well, let me see if I can do a quick one here, because I think you asked a programming question too. You're not leaning over fast enough. You're trying to stay too upright, brother. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, it looks to me like your focus is on the knees, right? Getting the knees forward, but you're keeping your back angle too straight for too long. So it's not just knees forward, right? By the time you're halfway down, okay, the goal is, by the time you're halfway down, the goal is your knees are where they need to be, and you're as leaned over as you need to be, right? So by the halfway point, back angle is set, knees are set. You're getting the knees out right away, but you're staying too upright, and then you have to keep leaning over the entire way down. So if we watch your back, all right. Yeah, your back angle is changing all the way down. And then your hip drive you're getting out of your hips a little too early. That one was better. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I would say that's the big thing to work on here, is just getting leaned over a little faster. Okay. So work on that. You've got the knees down pretty well. Just get your back angle set a little sooner. And let's see here. Yeah, these look good. Good. Okay. Dude, those look great. I'm not I'll do one more little check through here, but I think you're kind of nailing it. Good. Yeah. We'll do one more here. Yeah, these look great, man. That's a great set of deadlifts. So it's really just a squat, getting leaned over a little bit faster, and I think you'll be golden. So let's do another video and we'll double check. Let me see your programming question. I thought a programming question. I currently am trying to do a cut for the first time, down 7 pounds. Good job. 172 to 165, 5'8", 40 years old. I'm struggling to get hit struggling to hit 90% of the weight for the 4 main lifts that I was hitting when I started cutting. So the question is, what is a typical loss in muscle strength during a cut? All right, that's a tricky one. Because it's different for everybody. Losing 7 pounds is a lot of it's mental. And a lot of it could be with meal timing and carb timing. So I don't know exactly what you're doing. I typically find that for the first, the month or so of a cut, it's not that bad. I can kind of hang on to my strength. And then once my body fat gets down closer to 10%, like right around there, man, it just tanks. Like you just go from feeling like you're hanging on pretty well to like month 3, you just fall off a cliff in terms of strength. So, and you just kind of feel beat up and like shit when your calories get low enough and you're getting really lean. So, but a lot of times when guys start cutting, they start to think like, oh, I didn't eat today, and so I must be tired. And you kind of psych yourself out. And what you learn is, there are guys who do crazy fasting protocols and they still lift real heavy. I used to do intermittent fasting when I was cutting a lot, and then you realize like I'm actually okay. Like, I thought I didn't eat enough today, but then my deadlift went great. So breaking that connection and just trying to not psych yourself out. Now, the other thing to do is make sure that you're timing your carbohydrates close to your heavy lifting sessions. So like if you're gonna if you deadlift on Friday, right, you want to make sure that, either for lunch, depending on what time of day, or if you lift in the morning, then at the night before, you carb up a little bit. Like save your carbs and use them around the harder lifting sessions like squats and deadlifts, right? So that'll make sure that you have some glycogen ready to go and you don't feel so depleted. The other thing when you're cutting is to in the book, I talk about the shake that has a little bit of dextrose. So if you're feeling run down, you can get some dextrose powder and just put a couple tablespoons, I think it's like 2 tablespoons or something, in with a little protein shake, and that stuff absorbs like instantly. So just sip it as you start working out and it'll give you some carbohydrates like immediately available for the workout. So those are some things, but it might just be mental. You might think that you're not eating enough and so you feel weaker. So, there's no real way, but usually for the first month or 2, you can hang on pretty well. And it might be time, if you can't get back on track, you might just have to reset. And again, the focus is fat loss. So, don't really worry about the weights too much. Like do your best, but don't beat yourself up if you're losing some of your strength. You want to train productively. The goal really during a cut is to maintain your muscle mass. And so as long as you're lifting regularly, you should be good. And anyway, hope that helps. We went a little bit over, and thank you guys all for submitting this week. I had this was fun. We got to talk about some new stuff and some issues we haven't seen before. So thank you again. I will get this up as soon as I can, and we'll do it all again next week. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you online. Thanks.